Welcome to BetterPR. Wherever you are in your PR journey, you'll love exploring the stories from your peers about the many faces of public relations. BetterPR is brought to you by In Plain Sight Marketing, a public relations and marketing agency in Carson City, Nevada, Renown Regional Medical Center in Reno, and the Sierra Nevada chapter of the Public Relations Society of America. I'm your host, Kathy Taylor. Hey, welcome to BetterPR. I'm so excited today to welcome Renee Plain. She is the CEO of one of our fabulous sponsors, In Plain Sight Marketing. She's also the VP of Programming for the Sierra Nevada chapter of PRSA. And Renee is going to have an interview with Matt Seltzer, who is the Senior VP of Market Research for Intuify. And he's also a member of the board of the Las Vegas PRSA chapter. I'm going to try to be a fly on the wall and listen as Renee and Matt talk about two of my favorite subjects. One is Matt's new APR and the other is research. So Renee, take it away.
Thank you. And I also want to shout out to our event sponsor for our February membership luncheon, the National Automobile Museum located in Reno. We'll be having our lunch there, and it's a very cool venue if you haven't ever been. So Matt, super excited to have you on here. With the new year, January, February time zone, it just makes sense to talk about research, right? As everyone's getting their strategies for the year finalized and moving forward. Research is such a huge part of what we do as public relations professionals. And so having you on here just makes sense. And so why don't you give us just a little information about you to get going, especially make sure you mention your awesome book.
Oh, absolutely. Well, first off, thank you so much for having me. Hi, listeners. I'm Matt. So I'm with a company called Intuify, and we can talk more about that in a sec. But I will say Intuify is genuinely one of the most cutting-edge market research firms I've ever had a chance to be a part of. And again, I could geek out over that, and we will in a moment. But my background, I actually started at an advertising agency in Southern Nevada, and it's one you've probably heard of. And I got my foot in the door in the market research department, and I fell in love with it. I thought this was the coolest thing ever. And for context, I'm a math guy as well as a psychology guy. That's what my degrees are in. And it made complete sense. But when I say it makes complete sense for me, what I really, really loved is there's so much in our industry, in the agency world, in the public relations world, in marketing in general, where we go with our gut. And I think we've all experienced once or twice that might not always have been the right decision. Well,
yes.
The amazing thing about research, you say, okay, we need to put out certain messaging on a topic, or we need to reach certain mediums. And what if instead of going with your gut, we could just go ask 500 of your customers? Well, that's what research is, where we actually go and talk to dozens or hundreds or sometimes thousands of your customers, and we synthesize their responses. So all of that guesswork that you're doing, it stops being guesswork. I always say it's the difference between a laser guided strategy versus spaghetti at the wall. The difference is research. And so I did that for a few years. In 2008, I was laid off, which a lot of people were laid off in 2008. And this was a real turning point in my career because I knew I wanted to stay in the marketing world. I wanted to stay in the agency world. And I found plenty of agency jobs. I could not find another job doing market research. Now, I've really since come to learn why that is. It's because the majority of ad agencies with under 50 employees, which for context, that makes up about 70% of all agencies across the country is under 50 employees. They don't have enough research work to keep researchers employed full time. So the thinking is they'll just outsource it, but for the most part, it just doesn't, that step does not take place. So I've done a number of things since then. I've worked in many different agencies. I really love that the drive that comes from that world. I have a lot of trouble sitting still. So if anyone's like me and has trouble sitting still, go work at an agency. Your plate will be full. And I've done account management. I've done a ton of copywriting. That's a separate hobby. But whenever a research project came up, that's what I would do. In 2019, I stopped looking at this challenge, though, of I can't find a research position because that is still very much what I wanted to do. It was a bulk of what I've done in my career. And I stopped looking at it as a challenge and started looking at it as an opportunity, that if I love this agency world and I love this pace, and I want to do research, why not start my own company that partners with all the different agencies as their research team? And so that's exactly what I did. In 2019, I started a company called S2. We ended up growing it to 4 people, and we've partnered with the majority of agencies throughout the state of Nevada. I'm based in Las Vegas, as well as a number of teams throughout the entire country, and actually some in Australia and the UK. And then at the beginning of this year, so 2023 in January, we actually merged with another market research firm called Intuify. My whole team and I are part of the Intuify team now. And the reason we joined with Intuify, aside from the fact that we had very similar philosophies that research can be this impactful way to improve marketing, is that Intuify has built the best research platform I have ever seen. Things like a traditional survey where we ask people, on a 1 to 3 scale, how much do you like cheeseburgers? Intuify's replaced that with more intuitive thinking, like swiping left, right, or up on your phone, because that's how we engage with phones. And you start to think about, well, what is the goal of market research? It's to get as much information that's phenomenal as possible. And what's the best way to get phenomenal information? Well, it's having a phenomenal interface. That's why we've partnered with Intuify. That's why we're part of the Intuify team now. And what it really means, and this year's already been exciting, I know we're only about a month into the year, is that every project that we've done since the start of this year, our data has been better than ever before, which is so exciting because I already love data, and now it's better data, which means better results for marketing people and PR people.
Absolutely. And one of the things you mentioned about the survey software when we were just talking prior to hitting record was not just the swiping up, swiping down, but the whole brand experience. You talked about utilizing pictures and really just making it more of an interactive experience instead of just, as Kathy mentioned, punching as hard as she could to fill in the bubble on her phone. Yep. And so I'd love to hear more, share a little bit more about that and how they're really kind of flipping the whole survey world on its head, and changing how we use it and bringing it to today.
So you drank the Kool-Aid with me, and I love that.
Yeah.
But it's exactly the right thinking. So we tend to think of research as, I'm going to go gather a bunch of data anonymously for the purpose of strategy. That I'm going to take all this data and it's going to help dictate my strategy. Now, that is a huge part of research, but it's not the only part. A good example, and I think we were talking about this even before we hit record, let's say you host an event. Let's say you're a nonprofit. Let's say you're the Public Relations Society, and you host a monthly event. Well, we as communications experts know that after that event, literally right after, you need to continue the conversation. And a lot of times we'll do that through email. So we'll send an email saying, I hope you enjoyed lunch, or you hope you enjoyed the event. But then you get into that copywriting challenge of, well, what the heck do I actually talk about? Because I can't just send them an email and say, hey, thanks for coming. It's got to have purpose. I get enough emails that have no purpose that, we're all in that boat. Well, a great thing to do after an event is do a post-event survey. And it's not just that you're going to get data, even though you'll find out, did people like your content, hate your content? Was something as mundane as the parking experience, was that relevant enough that they will or will not come back because of that? We can actually get that data. But separately, you're creating a continued experience. So on that note, with Intuify, and a lot of survey software can do this, Intuify, we just have some very neat features. If you're sending a survey and it's not anonymous, meaning it's coming from your brand, then that survey experience should be an extension of your brand. So something that we do at Intuify a lot is we'll complement words, literal written words, with images. Because again, that's more intuitive. I mentioned a second ago, on a 1 to 3 scale, do you love or hate cheeseburgers? It's great to have a picture of a cheeseburger involved in that question. But now we're getting into imagery, and we already know as brand experts, if your brand has a specific look and feel, well, that image should match that. It should have the same color codes. And all of this in almost all survey software, you can enter hex codes. I mean, you can match exactly your brand feature. We take it to a different level, but now you're starting to think through that this research piece where you are going to get incredible data at the end of it, you're also creating an interactive brand experience. And we're at a point in 2023 where that brand experience can look and feel like your brand. That's phenomenal. And then if you want to take it a step further, why are you conducting a post-event survey? I mean, again, you want the data, you want the post-event, you want the post-event experience. So we've covered those two. But as communications experts, there's nothing wrong with us taking all that data that we collect over a year. So after every event that we host, we send out this survey and we aggregate it. And we now have insider information into what our local audience wants and doesn't want in events. Well, as PR experts, we know what to do with that. We know how to publish a white paper or create a great pitch with, and maybe a press release that has a few statistics from our local audience. All of that is already what we know how to do, but it's predicated by research. And if you really want to get interesting in this, I mentioned I worked at a big agency in the very early part of my career that had a research team. And I've known a lot of research or agencies that have research teams, and usually they have that more than 50 employees. This process that I'm talking about is part of their PR team's processes because they have a research team down the hall. But when you don't have that team involved, you're not even thinking about these tools and how they exist and how they can impact what we already do. They should complement it. Again, I go back, that's the opportunity that I ended up seeing where I could really help people. But even conversations like this, my goal really is to get audience members, well, PR teams really thinking, what can we do with existing market research tools? Again, we've already covered gathered data for white papers, for social content, for video content, for blog content, for pitch content, as well as you are going to get information that will help you dictate your strategy.
Yeah. And it's so fascinating. So when we think about the PRSA process, right? Like we are firm believers in the RPI process, the research, planning, implementation, evaluation. And that post-event survey is the evaluation piece, right? But really, it's really just taking you back into that cycle of like research again. Because you're evaluating what went well, what didn't, how can we do it better? But it's really driving the research piece into the next event, into the next campaign, into the next everything. And so I love hearing you talk about, the post-event piece and then how do we take those results and move it into the next piece of research. I think that's just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I talk a lot about marketing. I mean, true marketing. And we're going back to the classical economic definition of creating markets as a wheel. And it's a 3-part wheel. It's 3 phases. Phase 1 is research. Phase 2 is strategize. And phase 3 is implement. And again, it's a wheel. So after you implement your strategy, you go back to research. And a lot of times, what are you doing? Well, you're evaluating, did we get the press clips that we wanted, the quantity, the quality? Did they yield the results that we wanted? Because it's not just about we secured XYZ number of articles, it's that they generated XYZ number of leads or awareness, et cetera. We want to evaluate, did it work? And if it worked, great. You want to know why, because you can probably improve on that. And if it didn't work, you definitely want to know why, because you want to improve on that. All of that's research and evaluation. What's interesting about what I'm talking about, it's probably self-serving that I said what I said is interesting. But now you're taking research tools and putting them into the implementation step as well. That it's not just its own phase in the marketing process. We're talking about interactive forms that are brand experience pieces that yield data, but separately yield experience. That's a marketing tactic. But if I was to tell the average communications expert, okay, I need you to go program an interactive form, they're going to have no clue what to do. But if you say, hey, I need you to go download Qualtrics or SurveyMonkey, or there's a lot of different software out there, they understand that because the software is already built for them to create interactive forms. But you're not thinking about this if you work in strategic comms every day. You're definitely thinking about this if you work in research.
So you guys do a lot of really big research projects. I know you've got some smaller research projects as well, but as we're talking to our public relations professionals, and some of them might be a part of an agency, some of them might be working for, I don't know, a hospital, an airport, different things like that. How would you recommend that they get started with their research piece for, whatever their next campaign is? Like, I think research is always the underutilized piece because we just don't always have the time to do it, right? So I don't know if you can hear my.
It's a valid. No, it's a totally valid question because I mean, literally, when I'm telling people you need to do research, and essentially what I'm telling is, communications expert, I need you to learn data. That's a big ask. But there's two answers. I'm going to go with the self-serving answer first. Call Intuify. No, the better answer, and then I fully believe in this. I've talked about it a lot. Is to start. We all have this trepidation that, especially as God, every PR pro I've ever worked with, I think would say this. I can't roll it out until it's perfect. And we have to get past that fallacy. If you've never written a survey before, go write a survey. And it's gonna be probably the worst survey you've ever seen. That's fine, because it also means your next survey will be even better. And it's like anything in this world, you will just continuously get better at it. If you're letting hesitation hold you back, and we all do that, it's just never going to happen. But it doesn't even have to be survey tools. We do a lot of qualitative research too. And for those who don't know qualitative, I know the APR folks definitely know what qualitative is. But this is where you sit down and talk to someone. Maybe it's a focus group or a one-on-one interview, which we call in-depth interviews or IDIs. If you coordinated 3 IDIs, meaning a one-on-one conversation with 3 people who attended your event, and you're going to do it in the next week after every event, you do that after every single event, you're going to get information. I hesitate to use the word data because qualitative's hard to call data, but you will hear things that surprise you. And what's in a great way, maybe negative feedback, but it's still great because we know what we can improve on, or we can know how we can implement that into our strategy. And a lot of times with PR teams, data is intimidating, which means those surveys I'm talking about, that's completely foreign. But asking someone who works in strategic comms, I need you to sit down with your audience and talk to them for 30 minutes at a time. That's cake. We all know how to do that. So the other thing, in addition to starting, is lean on what you're comfortable with. Go with the methodology that you can rock right now, and then build on that from there. The important thing that needs to happen is the research. And I say that because in many systems that I've seen, it simply does not happen. In fact, there's a joke that I tell all the time. A CMO walks into a boardroom and he says, I got great news. I know that half our marketing works. I'm just not sure which half. And what I have consistently found in my career is that team that is working in marketing, their wheel of marketing is only 2 parts. It's strategize and implement. Meaning I'm going to come up with an idea, I'm going to put it into the world. And I'm going to come up with an idea and I'm going to put it into the world. And there is no evaluation phase. There is no looking at the data to come up with that strategy. It's pure ideation. And we've all seen it, where we're spending X on marketing and we're making Y dollars in revenue at the end of the year. And if Y is more than X, we're doing good. But maybe that X spend in marketing includes, hundreds of thousands of dollars in PR and hundreds of thousands in SEO and social and outdoor. And maybe some of those are underperforming. And you won't know that. You'll never know that unless you do take the time to do the research and evaluation. But in a lot of those systems, we're making money, so it works. Whereas I could tell you, maybe I could tell you outdoor doesn't need to be in that equation. You could double into SEO or double into to PR, and you'd have even better results. But you'll never know that without that step.
So I have a question for you. I was going to listen, and now I'm talking. But my question for you is, if you're making money, how would you suggest that you approach the C-suite to put this research option on the table?
There's a lot of ways to answer that question, and I'm going to go through as many as I can think of right now. the first is the laser focus that I've consistently seen, that when we produce research results, and I should stress, we don't always, so every time we do research, you get the big, thick, 200-page research report that no one reads. That's part of our process because that's part of a research process. But let me take it a step further. I know no one's going to read that. If I'm going to work with a PR team, we're also probably going to produce a messaging map because that's a 2-page document that you already know how to use. Same thing, we work with designers all the time. Well, we produce creative briefs, or we'll produce buyer journeys or personas, the same tools that are already being used, but instead of it being my opinion that goes into that brief, it's the collective opinion of 500 of your customers, which is significantly more powerful. Everything that goes into there is that laser focus dictation on strategy. Communicating that to C-suite or stakeholders is one of the first things that I do, because what they want to know is, why does this matter? Why should I be taking that step? The second piece that I always want to talk about is ROI. One of the main reasons that I mentioned so many teams, marketing teams, PR teams, communications teams, don't have a research team is because it's very difficult to see initial ROI on research. I mentioned there's three parts to marketing. There's research, there's strategy, implementation. The only time you actually make money in that is in implementation. Talking about putting up billboards all day is completely different than putting up billboards. So to say, okay, before the strategy piece, which you're already not going to make money on, we're going to do a research step, which you're also not going to make money on. That's a tough thing to chew on, and I can respect that. Now, separately, what I've actually seen is that it's not that there isn't ROI on research. It's that it takes longer. Maybe it's that you are going to spend, I don't want to put numbers on this, but you're going to spend X on research. What I'm telling you is you'll see the ROI on that. It might be 2 or 3-fold X, but it might take 2 years, because that might be how long it takes to take those insights and turn them into strategy and then implement it. And you can't just put up the outdoor sign or get the press clip. There's a process to it. But again, I'll go back. That process, when you finally get it implemented, it's accurate. I mean, I wish I had a better, more strategic word than accurate, but it is. It's not guesswork. This is what our audience told us they needed, so we did it. And all of a sudden, your PR placements, because they're so much more strategic, yield better results. They yield higher lead gen, or they yield higher awareness. The last piece, and I think we talked about this. I know we talked about this before we started recording. You guys missed a great conversation, by the way, before we started, but we're getting you caught up here. Is that there are many, many ways to create, I hesitate to say ROI, create tactical execution out of research. I'll give you a few examples, and I know we've touched on a few. Let's say you conduct a survey. Let's say you're a health system and you want to talk to 1,000 people in Oregon because you're a health system in Oregon. Well, the idea is that you're going to take that information and it's going to help dictate your strategy. And you want to keep that close to the chest because it's competitive intelligence. But there is nothing stopping you from taking a few of the more innocuous data points that you find, answers to certain questions, attitudes towards the healthcare system in Oregon, et cetera, and taking that and publishing it as a white paper, like we were saying, or putting it out into the media as a pitch. Well, now you're taking your research piece, which we already said is difficult to prove ROI on, and creating a tactical execution from it. And again, I'll go back. This is something I consistently see from the PR teams that actually have a research team down the hall. This is part of their thinking. But if they don't have that resource available to them, they're not even thinking about publishing a white paper. I'll give you a real good example. I got to work with an agency out of Florida. No, I can't say who it is. I'm sorry. But they had the goal of being the go-to expert in fitness brands. And they'd already worked with a few fitness brands nationally, so they were already on that mark. What they wanted to do is know more about fitness post-COVID than any other agency in the country. And so we ran a survey, talked to several hundred people who exercised at different frequencies in a post-COVID world. We asked about home gym fitness, going to a gym, activities that are gym related, so things like jujitsu or biking or myriad things. Well, they got a ton of strategic information that they could share with their clients, either passively, like things like, you know what, I know that no one else does. Here's how this could help your brand. But separate, we took a handful of those insights and we turned them into a presentation deck. And they went to every health and fitness conference in the country and presented what they know that no one else does. And that's just lead gen. That's just sales. That's a strategic part of any comms team. Either you're doing it for your own brand or you're doing it for your clients. But again, it's predicated on research. And again, when you can prove yourself the expert, I mean, here we are. We're in PR. What's something we know about doing? Well, we know about thought leadership. Thought leadership is a huge way to brand your client as the expert, and we do that because we know that people want to hire the expert. Well, what do experts have that no one else does? It's insider information. A lot of times, it's statistics. How are they going to get that? Well, a lot of times they're going to go through their agency or they're going to go through their marketing team. And actually, a lot of clients expect agencies to have access to research methodologies so they can be branded even better as the expert. Again, this is what research does. I'll give you one more piece that I also really like. And I'm seeing this play out much, much more in research, as well as in the SEO world. Actually, I should probably say content marketing more than SEO, but maybe SEO, is those research outputs. So we've already talked about white papers. We've talked about the big, thick, boring research report. Another thing that I and my team love to do is program interactive dashboards of our data. So this is, you go onto a website, it lives on the website. We'll use something like Tableau. If anyone knows what Tableau is, it's a data analysis software. And there's all your survey results. 60% of people love cheeseburgers. By the way, if I give examples, they're almost always about food. I should preface that.
So far, just cheeseburgers.
Cheeseburgers are one of my favorites. But you could put that data on your website, and you can even put some interactivity to it. So let's say you also say that 50% of your respondents were male and 50% of your respondents were female. And you can make it interactive that if you just click that female 50%, the results of cheeseburger attitudes will update as well to just women in your respondent set, which now you've created a level of interactivity. Well, we're talking about an interactive, clickable piece of content that can live on your website. Well, that's content marketing. And in fact, when we program these and we get clicks on them, those are the same kind of clicks that Google tracks when they say we track clicks. And more I'm hearing PR teams understand the value or the equivalence of what they do and how it's involved with SEO and content marketing. I'll give you a real good example of that. My very first website for S2, I got it to rank by getting enough backlinks, and I got all the backlinks through Haro. And Haro is a PR tool.
Yeah. For those who don't know it, help a reporter out, and it's awesome.
Oh yeah, I've been using that for 10 years now, and I've dated myself. That's terrible. But you start to think what we do, especially as more and more mediums go online, and the world of SEO, the world of content marketing is dictated by what happens on the internet. Well, what we do as comms professionals is create content for the internet. We may not think that's what we're doing, but even when the Las Vegas Review Journal or the Reno Gazette publish an article, they're publishing it on their website too. And if there's a backlink and it's a follow backlink, that helps your SEO rankings. And I'm a marketing nerd in general. It's not just market research. But let's go back a step, and we said, okay, well, we could publish our research as content, and maybe it's published content or maybe it's gated content. We could publish our research as interactive results. Well, there's nothing wrong with us not only putting that interactive dashboard on our website, we can send it to a reporter. And a lot of times, in fact, the software I'm talking about, Tableau, you can download JPEGs of your charts. And what does a reporter want? Well, they're looking for content. So if you can, they download from your website the results of your survey and publish it in an article and source you, that checks every box we're talking about. But in this case, and it's a very powerful case, all of that is predicated by doing the research, which is a step that most teams aren't unfortunately taking.
Yeah. I mean, we have drunk the research Kool-Aid for sure. We do as much research as we possibly can. We love doing the research piece. There are times where we're like, when we get to that evaluation piece, we're like, oh, that was some extra research we could have done, to make this either work better or things we've learned along the way. But research is such a powerful piece of the whole public relations and marketing. And I mean, we view public relations and marketing as like a handshake. I know there's a lot of people out there that kind of silo them out, but we really view it as like a handshake between the two, where the public relations is that relationship piece, and the marketing part is the more transactional piece. So it works really beautifully together, and
Yeah.
research just makes the world go round better. I do a lot of mentoring with small businesses or people getting ready to start a business, or maybe they've had some customers and they're looking to go to the next step. And a lot of them are like, well, I think I should be doing this marketing tactic. And it's like, well, have you done the research first? Like,
Yeah.
Do you know, are your people that you're trying to hit actually utilizing this platform or this service or reading this publication? Like, does it even make sense? I don't, so I'm always pushing research, and people ask me a question during mentoring and I'm like, well, your first step is going to be research. So.
Oh yeah. And there's a reason the APR process preaches that. It's not self-serving to me, even though I will admit it is self-serving to what I do. It's because it works. And I don't want to put a number on it. I've done hundreds of research projects in my career, literally hundreds. I have never once done a researcher project that did not yield something that wowed the team. I mean, every single project. And I have to admit that at that point, it's not a track record. That's just simply the results of doing research. That if I tell you that your audience listens to these three radio stations in the morning on their commute, and 80% of your audience has a commute, you know what to do from there. But how are you knowing that they listen to those three radio stations? Well, again, you can guess, or I could just go out, or you can go out and ask several hundred customers, or maybe you talk to 10 in those focus groups like I was talking about, or in-depth interviews. People will tell you the answers. And then the other thing, I agree with the handshake, that the two complement each other so well, and they're both part of a collective goal of, we want to achieve X. Usually we want to achieve X as we want to make money, but it's not always. But all of that you can then backpedal into funnels and customer journeys. And I'm a big fan of funnel thinking, that how someone becomes aware of you is different than how they engage with you. How they engage with you is different than how they decide to do business with you. You can map that. And I mean, you can map that in your data. Maybe, again, you're a brand new cheeseburger company entering the market. You can ask specific questions about, how do you discover new food? And is it word of mouth? Is it someone takes you there? Is it that you listen to commercials? We can track that. And separately, great, you heard about a new cheeseburger. We all know that's not the same as, I'm going to drive my car over to try the new cheeseburger. So what does that journey look like? You don't have to guess. We could just measure it and find out. And I don't just mean we as in Intuify. I mean, we as in everyone in our industry has these capabilities. I mean, heck, if you graduated from college, you took a research class, that might be the last time you remembered what the difference between primary and secondary research are, but you took it.
But not
separately. Oh yeah. Again, the APR, and then incidentally with the APR, or maybe separate from the APR, is I've been fortunate to win a number of Pinnacle Awards over the years from PRSA. Literally, that submission process asks, okay, what was your research phase? And then separate, it's asked, well, what was your evaluation phase? I mean, the top people in our industry are expecting this phase. They're not asking for it. They're expecting it to happen.
Right. Yeah. Well, and I think that's a great, I know we wanted to mention that you just recently got your APR in December, which congratulations.
Thank you very much. That's a long goal.
It was kind of you signed up to take it with your cohort, but you signed up earlier than they were taking it. So you were going to take the APR and see how you did. And then surprise.
That's exactly how it went down. And if my cohort's listening, I apologize for taking the test early. We all were planning to sign up in March, and I found this out after I'd signed up in December. And my thought is, okay, I'm going to take it in December. I'm going to fail, and you get your results back, and then I'll know what to work on. And apparently, I didn't fail, which that's cool. The APR is funny. There's a few reasons that I wanted to do it. One, I wanted the knowledge. I really wanted the knowledge, and I came away. So here in Southern Nevada, we do a twice annual cohort where a group of people get together, and PRSA puts together the speakers to teach everything. And I know a lot of different chapters do this. If you get a chance, take advantage of this. I'm talking to the listeners here. I wanted to do it for two reasons. One is that I actually had a very good friend. We worked for 10 years together. And she was the former president of PRSA Las Vegas. She actually passed away last year. Her name's Amanda. And she and I had talked about doing this for years. And so it was a few months after she passed away and the new cohort was coming out. And I said, you know what, I'm doing this. I'm going to do it for both of us. And I did. And so that was just a nice thing to check off the box. It felt like a nice way to honor my friend. Separate from that, I talk to a lot of PR teams. I mean, it's the nature of my business. I've spoken at the Western District Conference for PRSA a few times. I'm planning to be in Tucson. We'll find out about that soon. But I say this because I'm talking to people who do this every day, meaning they speak to reporters and they counsel clients on strategic communications and crisis management. And it's very easy for someone in that industry to say, well, what the heck does the research guy know about PR? And let's go back to thought leadership. This was a validation point for me, because I want someone, if I'm working with a PR team, and I do work with a lot of PR teams, I want them to know that they can trust me. And one of the best ways that they can do that, and that I can do that, is to speak their language, to understand their pain points. The APR not only provided me even more information to that, and I should say I was a PR account manager for many years as well. So, I mean, I do know the industry. But saying that is completely different than having APR after my name. Saying APR after your name, there's a trust factor. And as a partner for comms teams, I want that trust, because it means I can do better work for you. It means that we can communicate better. It means that when I'm telling you that, yeah, you should probably publish this research as a white paper, I'm not just trying to get you to write a white paper. I'm trying to do what the data is saying we should be doing in our strategy. I can't even translate data into strategy unless I know how strategy works. And if I'm working with a PR team, I need to be as educated as possible in PR. Separately, for context, I'm the former president of AMA here in Las Vegas, the American Marketing Association. Because again, I work with a lot of marketing teams, advertising teams. I'm also involved with AAF. As you can tell, I don't sit still well. But all of these organizations serve a purpose to educate and inform different facets of communications industry and the marketing industry. And I want to be as versed in those industries as possible. Professional organizations, certifications, and especially the APR do exactly that.
Awesome. Well, I have a feeling that we could keep talking all day. I mean, we've already been chatting together for over an hour, and that was before and during. I just want to thank you so much. If you guys, our listeners, want more of Matt's research magic, you actually have a book. You can order it on Amazon. It's The Creative Catalyst: How to Create Better Marketing by Asking and Answering Better Marketing Questions. And then I'd love to include all of your contact information in our show notes so people can reach out to you.
Absolutely.
You're also going to be here in Reno on February 16th for our monthly programming, which is so exciting.
The Automobile Museum. I'm looking forward to that.
National Automobile Museum, yes. So this has just really been great. Thank you so much for your time, for your expertise, and can't wait to get more in February.
We're going to have a fun time in February. And seriously, this was fun. I appreciate the time.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Renee. You did an awesome job as our guest host today. And Matt, can you give us that Intuify website, please?
Sure. So it's intuify.com. That's INTUIFY.com. And if you ever want to connect with me, I'm Matthew Seltzer with 2 T's on LinkedIn. That's the only time I go by Matthew. I'm mostly Matt. And I connect with everyone on LinkedIn. I'm very active on LinkedIn. You'll see some strategic information from me and great insights. You'll mostly see pictures of my dog, which probably doesn't belong on LinkedIn, but LinkedIn seems to love it. Yeah, and I genuinely love talking. And then if you really want to get in touch with me, my email address is mseltzer, that's just like Alka-Seltzer, at intuify.com.
Fantastic. Thank you both. And we look forward to seeing you in February in Reno. Thanks for listening to BetterPR. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share with your colleagues and peers. To get show notes and listen to more episodes, visit our website at betterpr.libsyn.com. That's betterpr.libsyn.com. Thank you. Thanks for listening to BetterPR. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and share with your colleagues and peers. To get show notes and listen to more episodes, visit our website at betterpr.libsyn.com. That's betterpr.libsyn.com. Thank you.